Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. This is episode number 55. We have finally made it to number 55 after a bit of a whirlwind the last few weeks and months. We've had some fantastic guests on the show. And as you know, this podcast is put together by the Hare Krishna Project, which is kind of an initiative that seeks to share Krishna consciousness with anyone and everyone who's willing to listen. And I'm always keen to talk to guests and hear from guests who have a fascinating story to tell. And as I say all the time, everyone has a story to tell. And our guest number 55, I'm pleased to welcome this week, Maya.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat.
Dandavat pranams. It's great to see you. How are you doing?
Very well. Very nice to see you too, Nathan.
Yeah.
Very happy.
We met, and you got a bit of a croaky. You've had a bit of a flu recently. You've got a bit of a
yes,
bit of a cold.
Yeah, just got out of it, but there's still a bit of cough there. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right. You're allowed to cough. You're allowed to cough. There's no restrictions here.
Thank you.
So Maya, you and I met, must have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago, at the Bhakti Yoga Institute. Which sounds very posh, doesn't it? The Institute, which is a Hare Krishna temple or educational center, right next to Terminal 4 at Heathrow Airport. It's an ideal place to stop over if you've got a long wait between flights. And that temple's run by the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat. So we met there a couple of years ago. We haven't seen each other recently because of traveling and different things. Let's start by you telling us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much, Nathan, for giving me this opportunity to talk. I was watching a few videos of yours and they were all fascinating. It's very, very nice, very interesting to hear everyone's story. I hope some people will find mine interesting as well. And I really hope I won't make mistakes with English, as I'm not very good at English. So let me present myself. I am Maya. This is my birth name. I was born in Lebanon. And then after a few years there, I grew up in Switzerland. We went to Switzerland with my family. And after Switzerland, I decided to go live in Spain. And now it's been more than 10 years that I'm living in Spain. I went to Spain to learn flamenco dancing. That was the main purpose. And I stayed.
Wow.
There.
So you went to Spain to learn flamingo dancing.
Flamenco dancing,
Flamenco, yeah.
South of Spain.
Salsa. Wow, fantastic. So you're do you know, I completely forgot that you were born in Lebanon. You told me a couple of years ago, but because you always talk about Spain all the time whenever I speak to you, or you're in Spain, I completely forgot that you were actually born in Lebanon. So your native language is?
Well, it's half Arabic and as much Arabic as French, both. I learned French when I was a child in Lebanon, and both languages have been accompanying me since I'm a child.
Wow. It's really beneficial. And even though the kind of international language of the world is English, it's really good to be bilingual, isn't it? And learn and understand different languages.
Well, it gives a good exercise to the brain. It makes it much easier to learn other languages later.
Yeah, I mean, I often feel quite ignorant, really, that I haven't taken the time to learn other languages well. I mean, I learned German at school, but I've never really spent time in Germany to speak it or to practice it. You know, I go to France a lot, so I'd love to speak French, but it's just finding the time to learn it.
Well, it's hard when as an adult to start learning a language. what happened to me and my brother and sister is that we were children and we just received it like sponges. It was very easy to learn this way. It's so much easier when you are a child, no? And it makes it easier for you later as an adult to learn other languages. But as an adult, to really start from zero a new language, I find it very difficult.
So just interested in your name, Maya. Your parents gave you the name Maya. That's an Arabic name?
Not really. They heard about that name on the TV in that time. They found it nice and they gave it to me. It was really not a common name in my country, nor in the region around my country. No, really not. Now it's more common, but not in that period. And they didn't know anything about its Sanskrit meaning.
Because that might be something that devotees ask you. Oh, your name is Maya. You know, Maya means this in Sanskrit. You know, there's in kind of Vaishnava philosophy theology, it means something quite distinct. Okay. So,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, just to say that the funny thing is that today I got initiated by Srila Bhakti Kusum Ashram Maharaj.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank
congratulations.
You. No, just to say that he gave me the name of Maheshwari Devi Dasi.
Wow.
Yeah, the controller energy.
Well, I feel hugely honored that on the day of your initiation into the Gaudiya Sampradaya, you've taken time out to record this podcast.
Oh yeah, but that was in the morning. I had the initiation was early this morning, so it was really fine then to prepare the podcast for this afternoon. Very, very happy to make this podcast. So yeah.
And just you received initiation from Ashram Maharaj, did you say?
Yes, he's visiting now the temple. He will leave tomorrow. So I thought just before he leaves, I really need to do this. And yeah, it was a very, very moving, do we say moving moment? It was very moving, very impressive for me, very heavy for me emotionally.
And how are you feeling like right now?
Very peaceful, much more peaceful than before. just since I got out of the initiation ceremony, since then I feel super peaceful. Certainly because I did what I really needed to do. They were telling me from the beginning that I needed to do this, but I wasn't completely convinced until recently. And as I did it by complete conviction, it feels really good. You know?
Well, I obviously didn't know that, and I feel really pleased for you. I think that's...
I should have told you. That's my fault. I should have told you, actually. But everything happened very quickly, you know? It was decided in last minute. My desire to be initiated, no, it's been a while I have it. I have this desire, but Ashram Maharaj decided of it in last minute, let's say. That's also why.
And some of our listeners and viewers may be wondering who Ashram Maharaj is and how he fits into the Gaudiya family. So I haven't had the privilege of meeting him physically. We have spoken on Zoom before. I was in a Zoom get together with him a while ago, but just my understanding is he is a which is the most appropriate word to use? He's a Diksha disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Exactly.
He was one of the original disciples of Prabhupada from this at least the 70s, and certainly since the 80s, he's been one of the leading. In the 80s, he's been serving since the 80s, he's been serving in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat, and certainly since the passing of Govinda Maharaj, he's been one of the leading acharyas in the mat, hasn't he?
Exactly. Everything you said
for about 10, 13 years. Yeah, and him and Janardana
Maharaj
are yeah, they're very highly, in my head, they're very highly elevated, both of them. That they are doing so much to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission around the world. And at their age as well, it's quite remarkable what they do in their 70s.
They're traveling the world, and everywhere they go, they give, it seems like they give so much of themselves. They are so very generous. They give lots of time and attention to the devotees and make everyone feel special. I was really amazed by that. Despite of being tired and being solicited so very often, they are still very, very present, very much present, available for everyone.
Because I guess when you're a sannyasi, of course I wouldn't know, everybody wants your time. Everybody wants to talk to you. You know, you walk in a room and it's like, oh, can I ask you a question, or can I show you something? You know, and it's quite overwhelming having to please people all the time, I guess, serve people all the time.
And but they deal with it in a very amazing way and make everyone feel special and give time to everyone. I was so very impressed that during the initiation ceremony, while I was sitting in front of Maharaj, I almost couldn't look at him because I was too impressed. His presence is really powerful. His huge and infinite generosity and how you say that, merciful, sweet availability, you know, is very impressive. Is very impressive. Do we say availability? Willingness to help.
Yeah, and they
You
make
know,
themselves available, but the willingness and the desire to help and serve. So can I just ask, what was it particularly about Ashram Maharaj that appealed to you?
oh, actually, the hazard made me meet him, know him during my stay here in the Bhakti Yoga Institute. I wasn't sure about getting initiated or not at that moment, at the beginning of my stay. And then when I met him, it was really, I just felt really amazed, as I said. Um, I, I had never felt like this before in front of someone. I felt very, very much humbled. It's really special. It's really particular to know him. So this overwhelmed me. I spoke about him to the people, to the other devotees. They encouraged me to take initiation from him, and they explained me a bit about him. Um, and this made me love him even more, you know. Yeah.
So it's now March 2023. You've just received initiation from Ashram Maharaj. You were born in Lebanon X number of years ago. I don't need to know your age.
Better not to say it.
I was once told, never ask a woman or a swami their age. Uh, so I don't.
That's definitely true. Yeah.
So how did we? I know it's how did we? A kind of short version, I guess. How did we get from there to here? You know, that's another way. Another way to ask that question. How did you meet the devotees?
Oh yeah.
And how did you discover Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, that was a very funny thing for me. Yeah, it happened in a very funny way. I was looking for the most convincing way to talk about God to desperate people through art because I like to write songs, dance, make musical videos. I wanted to talk about God because myself I had gone through very hard times in my past when I was younger, very tough times because of some traumas in the childhood, etc. And at some point I rejected God. I mean, I couldn't believe anymore that he really loved me and cared about me. It's not that I didn't believe in the existence of God, but I just didn't believe that he really cared. He really was there for us. I started to feel like he was distant and antipathical. Do we say that? No. Anyways, I was I was having some issues, no, in my relationship to God. And I made a spiritual retreat, left everything, my house, my job, my car, went to a spiritual retreat and really wanted to make peace with him. And this happened. It happened. So I promised myself at that moment that I would do something through art, because art is what I mostly like to do in my life. I would do something to talk about God to people who would would have gone through the same issues as me, no, who would have rejected God the same way I had. So I started to search the most convincing way to talk about God, and couldn't find it. I was born in a Christian family, and so I looked into the Christian philosophy. I mean, I read texts of Christian philosophers. I made some researches. I could find some nice answers to talk about God in a somehow logical way. But still, it wasn't what I was looking for. It still wasn't the most convincing way to talk about him. So while I was searching, I met someone who ended up being my boyfriend at that time. And he kept telling me about Srila Prabhupada. All the time he told me about Srila Prabhupada and about his writings, but I rejected it all. I really found it too weird. So I didn't try to know anything about it. Then later, I thought I would like to write a song about the Sanskrit meaning of Maya. I mean, the Sanskrit concept of Maya. So I went to a Sanskrit class in Spain, in Barcelona, to know more about it. And it happened that the teacher there was a devotee, a Hare Krishna devotee. Later, I knew that she was a devotee. So she started to talk about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there I was really amazed. It was like receiving a meteorite on top of my head. It was like really finally finding this convincing way to speak, to talk about God. But then she presented some aspect that appeared to me a bit weird. So I found it. I found it very. I mean, not completely convincing. A bit weird. So I took my distances with it. I didn't investigate more about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And finally, one day, someone told me about Tarit Krishna Das, a devotee, Hare Krishna devotee. Out of nowhere, someone told me about him as an English guy living in Barcelona. And they told me about his routine. He's chanting the japa, taking prasadam, doing harinams, etc. And I found it very interesting. I tried very hard to meet him, and we met. And while speaking, I told him about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Srila Prabhupada. And this is when he told me that there was a link between the two. And he explained me what was this link and what was the philosophical background of both. And he told me that he pertains to the same line as those acharyas. And I was amazed. I didn't know that there was a link between them. And this is how it started for me. Little by little, he made me know more and more about the rituals as well as the philosophy. And the more I knew about it, the more I went to the temple and associated with devotees, etc., the less I found it weird. It was the complete opposite, actually. I started to find it the most convincing way to relate to God. And also, I mean, for my artistical project, I found the answer, but also on a personal level, I found finally my home. I found peace, finally. I really found the place I was looking for on all aspects, whether for my art or for my personal needs, let's say. Is it understandable what I'm saying?
I can completely understand what you're saying.
Okay. I'm happy then.
I find your story very fascinating. I mean, I find lots of people's stories fascinating, but yours particularly fascinating. So, can I just understand in my head? So you were told by some people about this devotee called Tarit.
Exactly.
And Tarit eventually became your partner.
Exactly. He's now my partner. Sorry.
I just want to make sure we were talking about the same person, because you referred to him before, and now I kind of understand how it fits in. And
sorry, I didn't precise that he's my current partner.
No, and I know Tarit. I met him. So he was staying at Bhaktivedanta Manor. Must have been 2016, 17, a long time ago, and he was doing the kind of 3-month Bhakti course, I think.
Exactly.
I'm not sure it's called the Bhakti course. He was doing the course, and I remember meeting him and getting on with him very well. He's a really nice young man, and he's very easy to get on with. He's very kind of approachable, and and then that's great. So you met in Barcelona. So he was living in Barcelona, living his life of devotional service. And then obviously through that route, you kind of discovered Krishna consciousness. And I'm just going to add another name, very important name. So I think the link you're referring to between Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Prabhupada was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur.
Yes, of course. The line of the Saraswati.
Yeah.
I mean, the line. Yes.
Well, the line that we're all in. Well, most of us are in. It's the Sarasvat line, which actually certainly in the ISKCON circle, that term's, I don't hear it used that much, but it's all the groups that, like a family tree, come from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, the Sarasvat line. And it's a big family, and we're all brothers and sisters and cousins. And so you'd think we'd all get on. I'm joking.
I was very surprised to see with time the different ramifications. Do we say ramifications? All the
different branches, different.
Yeah. I was very surprised.
I mean, I where is it? I wrote a book about it. And when I first decided to write a book about the Hare Krishnas in Britain, I thought, I knew it. Not that I thought that I knew it all, but I thought there wouldn't be much I needed to discover. And then I did all the research and found that in the Sarasvat line, where you and I sit, there's actually 20 different mats.
20. And I didn't even know that.
In the UK, there's others outside of the UK. There's probably, I don't know, about hundreds, but there's certainly a lot. But certainly in the UK, there's at least 20 that are active, that, have meetings and gatherings, and they chant together and read books together. Okay, so what is it about Krishna consciousness that you're attracted to? Why does it appeal to you?
Well, for me, it's very easy. It's the character. I mean, it's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's it. I mean, mainly. Obviously, everything appeals to me, but it's mainly Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because for me, he's the coolest, the most beautiful, the most attractive, the most convincing, you know. Um, the more I knew about him, the more I felt a, a natural love or attraction for him. I don't know if it's understandable. Um, but I feel like even for someone who don't feel this spontaneous interest, this spontaneous love for him, even though we don't feel it, I feel like it's hard not to be seduced by him because on a very rational level, if we just talk on a very rational level, uh, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very convincing because he reconciles. Do we say reconciles opposites or harmonizes?
Reconciles,
Reconciles opposites.
or harmonizes opposites. Yeah.
From the very little I know about him, uh, yeah, I could say that he harmonizes opposites, and that's beautiful. It's hard not to be seduced by that. Like, for example, he was a Brahman, a scholar, but at the same time, he showed the world a very simple, easy, accessible way to connect with God, without no meditation, no accumulation of knowledge, rather just a very simple attitude, no, by going in the street and chanting the holy name. This is fascinating, really fascinating for me. And by the way, as I like to dance and sing, I find it beautiful that he combined these two things. He combined the singing toward singing the Lord's name, but while he's looking at the sky, looking towards uh, God, and at the same time he's tapping with his feet. He's tapping the ground with his feet, which is another, two opposite things, we would say, no? Very grounded and also very uplifting, two opposite things together. He combines them in such a beautiful way. But this is a very superficial aspect. It's just me as an artist. I really like this aspect. But regardless, from the very little I know, I also understood that he harmonized things on a philosophical level. When in the other Vaishnava Sampradayas, they talk whether about the monism, which is we are one with God, God and the Word, God and the Jivas are one, or whether they talk about the dualism, which is there's the Word on one side and Krishna, God on the other side. Mahaprabhu came and harmonized it all by stating that there is oneness and difference at the same time of the jiva souls with Krishna, the world and Krishna, and unconceivable oneness and difference at the same time. Yeah, and all of this, on top of all this, he came in a very discreet way. We call him the hidden avatar, no? He wasn't announced explicitly in the scriptures. So this gives him even more charm, even more attractability. Do we say that? Yeah. So that's it. That's it. It's a fascinating personality, if we can say personality.
The philosophical concept is called Achincha Abeda Abeda, which aren't just lyrics in a Kula Shaker song. They're also the kind of philosophical concept of simultaneous oneness and difference. It's like this concept, and this concept's used often in, I've heard it used often in Krishna consciousness, maybe of like the ocean and a drop of water. So the quality, generally the quality is the same, or maybe a jug of water in the ocean, the quality of the water is the same, but the quantity is different. So that's kind of a way you could kind of, maybe it's not completely the same, but you kind of understand it in that way. Qualitatively, our original constitutional position, technical term, is kind of the same as Krishna, but actually we're just a spark of that spiritual reality, or a spark of the absolute reality. And of course, you're staying at the Bhakti Yoga Institute, which is a temple run by the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati, founded by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, who was and is incredibly well known for his kind of philosophical conceptions. And, you know, I've read a few of, they're here somewhere up here, a few of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's books I've got here on the shelf, and they're just quite remarkable because they go into so much depth in terms of understanding, or trying to understand, the absolute truth. And you know, I was quite blown away when I discovered that, you know, Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, was encouraging his students, his disciples, to go to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. You know, when just before Prabhupada left the planet, you know, passed on, when his disciples asked him, you know, who do we go for after you're gone? Srila Prabhupada said, for philosophical advice, go to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. You know, he is, you know, what he is, like my Shiksha guru. And so you're in the right place, is what I'm saying. You're in the right place to be, I think. Or in a very good place to be, to try and understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The fact that Chaitanya's name is in the name of the mat, you know, is a blessing, actually. So you're I'm rambling a bit now, but we met at that temple a couple of years ago, and you're at the temple now. I don't think you've been there the whole time. I think you've been elsewhere.
Exactly.
So tell us a bit about the temple, in terms of why do you like staying there, and what is it like to live in an ashram environment?
Mm. So before meeting Tarit Krishnadas, I had done spiritual retreats in monasteries, and I really loved that. It's really something I naturally love. So when I came to the Bhakti Yoga Institute, it wasn't that weird for me. It was very attractive for me, you know. But still, as it wasn't as the how you say, not the rituals, but the routine of the temple was something still a bit weird for me, very different from a monastery. I was a little bit kind of not scared, but something like scared to live in the temple. But at some point, one day I decided I'd go and try it, no matter what. And since the very first day, I really felt like at home. And that was very surprising for me. I didn't expect this at all. Everything seemed natural to me. The waking up in the morning, doing the artis, doing service for the temple, eating the blessed food, the prasadam, and especially to discover Bhaktivinoda Thakur songs. This is when I discovered them, thanks to one devotee, Vishnu Priya, a young devotee who sings beautifully and knows a lot of his songs. And yeah, it was for me like walking on a path, cotton path. Do we say that? Cotton path. Everything was cozy, smooth, gentle, a very easy experience, very joyful experience, really joyful. I didn't know one can feel such joy at serving the others, no? At serving in the temple, at participating in the artis. Yeah, I was very surprised. Yeah. So this is my experience. This is what I can say about living in a temple. So that this was 2 years ago. Then I had to go back. We had to go back to Spain, as there is our main. There is where we reside. But recently, I decided to come back here to the Bhakti Yoga Institute, and I'm here since January. My purpose was to know more about the philosophy, because we don't have a Saraswat Mat in Barcelona. We attend an ISKCON temple. So I really wanted to come here and know more about, read more of the books of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Govinda Maharaj. I didn't read that much. I still have a lot to read, but the little I read showed me that I really did well by coming and doing this retreat. I learned a lot, and I grew up. I feel like I grew up a lot, and I felt that I really needed to end this retreat with the initiation. It really made sense. It was the obvious thing to do. It's to end my retreat, but actually it's the beginning of everything, no? Tari told me it's the beginning of the end. It's now the beginning of a new life where I will have to do some sacrifices, some effort, but I'm happy to do them. Very happy.
Yeah, it's good, because in life we have to be committed to something at some point. And if you're going to be committed to something, it's good to be committed to a spiritual path, because it's better, it's good for you spiritually. So one question I had for you was, what are the main differences then? I wasn't aware that you stayed in some monasteries. What are the main differences between kind of a Hare Krishna ashram and a Christian monastery? How are they different, or how are they similar?
My God. Very different. Let's talk about the differences. You feel much more alone in the monasteries. You are invited to participate in some services or in the masses, but you still feel super alone. It seemed like a gathering of really individuals who are being kept apart from each other, even though they were gathering. In ashram, in the temple, I never felt like this. I have always the feeling of pertaining to a community, a family. That's really the word, the family, pertaining to a family, not being alone at all. And of course it has a bit of difficult aspects, no? Sometimes it's not always easy, no, to connect in a harmonious way with the devotees, but still it's really nice to go through bad times as well as to go through good times. It make us grew a lot. I grew up a lot. I learned a lot. It's beautiful. Instead of being each one distant from each other, like I experienced in the monastery, you don't learn that much as you can learn in a temple. I feel like,
So tell us a bit of, if you want to tell us a bit about some of the monasteries you've stayed in. They're all Christian monasteries.
Yes, I honestly don't remember which orders, you know, they talk about orders.
But they're Catholic.
Catholic, and there are orders.
Yeah,
Les
different.
ordres.
I know nothing about Catholic orders, and there's a
Mm,
few Anglican orders too, but I know nothing
I
about them either. But it's certainly, you stayed obviously with the nuns.
and then the nuns, and it was, I guess, Benedictines
Okay.
order, what we call the Benedictines, and it was in South France. I used to live in Switzerland, but for some reason, I wanted to escape, go abroad, and I chose south of France. I chose a monastery there in Nice. We were talking about Nice the other day. Um, and there, I had actually, I did it in a bad way. I mean, I didn't prepare anything. I just looked at a map and chose a monastery and went there. Um, Without asking for a priest to accompany me. I mean, it was partly my fault, my responsibility not to have connected more with the people in the monastery. I could have asked also for a priest to accompany me and help me find answers to my questions. So
Mm.
I went to that monastery a few days, and then things happened in a very funny way. I met a nun um, who told me, "Yeah, Maya, you should do it in a more structured and organized way." And she knew about a spiritual retreat in one monastery that where each individual, each person was accompanied by a priest, whether a priest or a nun. Every day, it had a program. You had to pay for it. I mean, it was a special retreat. Just they do it just sometimes during the year, and I was very lucky because there was a retreat happening very soon, and there was just one seat left, the place for just one person to participate into it by complete hazard. I mean, someone had cancelled their participation, so I could participate into it. So she subscribed me to it, and this retreat, this second retreat, was really beneficial for me. I was accompanied every day. We read the Bible, we discussed it. I opened my heart and said what I was tortured by, and I got a lot of help, and I got some enlightenment. And just 1 week, and still it was very beneficial. But this is not what they usually do in monasteries. No, it's you. This is paid retreats. You know, you pay for them, and it's you know, sometimes only during the year. Usually, if you go to a monastery just to be there, you're not accompanied. There's nothing special that proposed to you.
I can imagine it was certainly an experience. I mean, I would certainly. I mean, I don't have the time to do things these days, new things, but I would certainly love to experience staying in a monastery for a period of time, just for a few days. You know, and I think any spiritual discipline that encourages us to try and be more God conscious, you know, to be more selfless and be more God focused is a good thing. And yeah, interesting. And I mean, I don't know anything about the orders, as I said, but I know some of the Catholic orders, there's like complete silence, isn't there?
Exactly. That was, by the way, the case of the second monastery where I did this very special retreat. It was a silent monastery, so we would never talk, not even during lunch or during the meals, never. And this helped a lot. Obviously, it helped a lot to go inside and clean inside and not be distracted by the environment. Yeah. Very,
But,
very nice.
but surely at times, I imagine they do speak to each other sometimes because they kind of have to.
Very little, really, for practical things. Very, very little. But then we would talk. We would meet all of the person doing that retreat. We would gather once or twice per day to share our experience. Of course, we would do that. But the nuns living there, I think they would always, most of the time, keep quiet. Yeah, this is their lifestyle.
Fascinating. And now you've got involved with a Hare Krishna community, which is obviously a lot louder than a Catholic community or Catholic monastery. Certainly, you know, the Hare Krishna movement, spiritual movement is, you know, practically a lot of it is focused on kirtan. This idea of chanting the names of the Lord loudly, you know, in a communal setting. I mean, you've got japa, which is kind of much quieter chanting, personal chanting, but kirtan, you know, is such a big part of what we do in terms of a spiritual practice to connect with the divine. It couldn't be more different, you know, than from the kind of Catholic background. So what are your plans for the future? You're about to leave the Bhakti Yoga Institute in London and fly off back to Spain. What are your plans for the future in terms of what you want to do?
So I have been thinking of a performance, a show in which I would talk about God. I've been thinking of it for several years now, and so my project now is to make it happen. And it will be a kind of monologue in which I would also sing some Vaishnava songs and also dance. A tap dancing that is inspired by the flamenco dancing I learned in Spain. And all of it's just to talk about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually, how I got to know about him. That's it, just to glorify him, because I feel like yeah, as we said before, he's very convincing, he's very charming, and I believe it's hard for people to resist it. And I saw that very few people know about him, even in the Hindu society or in any one of my friends who is interested in Hinduism. No one knows about him. So this is also a reason why I would really love to talk about him. But I'm a bit afraid to really do it because I feel like I still have a lot to know about him. I need to read more and more, you know, to feel really secure with my knowledges. And yeah, obviously the singing and the dancing needs to be rehearsed. So it's not for right now, but it should not be for too late. Yeah, hopefully this year I will be able to perform it in Barcelona. And at the same time, I'm working to earn some money. No, I have 2 little jobs, and that's it. But what really I want to focus on is this project, and to go deeper also in the readings and in the association with the devotees, not only for this project, but also for myself to grow up more and more. I still have to grow up so much spiritually.
We're all very immature spiritually still. We're all at the very bottom of the ladder,
I'm the most
trying to work our way up. But I you know, you just before you mentioned about the social awareness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I was thinking exactly the same thing. He's an avatar that so few people know about, even in the wider Indian or Hindu family community. Very few people know about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when we think of the last, I was going to say modern era, not modern era, when the last 2000 years, obviously Jesus Christ is the most well known in terms of incarnation, we wouldn't use that word in Vaishnavism necessarily, but an incarnation of God. And in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, we recognize the most important for this age is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the golden avatar, the golden boy, come to live a life of devotion. So yeah, and you go to most Hindu temples, there's no pictures of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They've never heard of him. I think the Hare Krishna movement is just seen as some fringe Hindu sect.
That's what I understood, yeah.
Which isn't necessarily the case. Well, it depends who you ask. Yeah, I would love to see that show at some point. That performance. It's yeah, I'd love to see it at some point, definitely.
Still working on it. I was thinking to sing Vaishnava songs and dance at the same time, tap dancing. I mean, what the feet would do is what the mridanga usually do,
Wow.
When I rehearse, it sounds really good, but I realized that it's practically a bit difficult because I am dancing, I can't breathe properly to be able to sing properly. So I have to find a solution for this. I'm not sure I can combine the two things simultaneously, Maybe I would need to record myself and dance on top of this recording, or to ask someone to sing and I dance on top of their singing. Yeah, I have to fix some practical problems. But I was very surprised by this combination. I mean, the tap dancing goes very well with it, especially when I remember that Mahaprabhu himself used to tap dance while singing.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
He used to. There is a song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur that refers to it, saying how he taps with his feet on the ground with those, how we call them, on his ankles.
Yeah.
Those
I'm not sure of the name, but I know what you're referring to. But
beautiful. That's so beautiful. He would play music with his feet. Yeah.
Believe it or not, when I first met the devotees almost 20 years ago, one of the things that attracted me, I get maybe similar to you, is this idea of dancing. I mean, I don't really dance so much these days, but when I was younger, in my teens, I spent a lot of time in nightclubs dancing, and obviously the mood was very different. And the end goal was very different. But when you find this kind of spiritual group or religious group that also dance, but the focus is different, you think, wow, I can still dance and I don't have to drink.
Well, you get really drunk though. You get
yeah,
really drunk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a fascinating thing, really, this Harinam Sankirtan. Can I, or are we out of? We're running
No, we
out of
can
time.
talk. We can talk for longer than you want. I'm conscious I haven't asked you the question about Harinam Sankirtan, but you talked about it a bit in a different way earlier. But you can talk about Harinam Sankirtan.
Oh, then amazing!
Yeah, please do.
I'm very very happy to talk about it because it's a very surprising thing when you have never done it, like me, and you watch it from the outside. It seems so weird, so weird. But then you taste it just once, and it has a very surprising effect. It it awakens such a joy inside of you, and you also see that around you it's awakening joy, in people's heart. So it's really surprising and fascinating. I mean, what is really fascinating about the Harinam is the fact that we love it. We can't but love it, in my point of view. In my experience, it happened like this. It was for the Ratha Yatra procession. my devotee friends in Barcelona insisted on me to go with them and chant with them in the procession. And that was the first time I was going to chant in the streets. And I didn't stop dancing, jumping, and singing. I was very surprised by that. And since then, I kept going on Harinams in Barcelona. We organized 4 Harinams per week, while before there was just one. So yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say is that it not only provides a huge feel of joy, but it also makes you feel like you are doing the most valuable thing you could do in your life. Why? Because if you read a little bit about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and why he was doing Harinam, it has such a big meaning, such a valuable meaning, such a beautiful meaning, that the fact that we are doing the same, I mean, to be doing the same thing makes you feel like, wow, I'm actually very fortunate. I'm doing something really precious, really valuable, that really has a meaning, you know? And that's it. My mother, who is a very strong believer, she's Christian. She's the only one in my family. I told her about Krishna consciousness. She was fascinated by the Harinam Sankirtan. That was the thing that mostly surprised her, and that she mostly loved. She told me, that is the most beautiful thing I've heard, Maya. You guys are chanting the Lord's name, spreading the Lord's name in the streets freely, by chanting and dancing in a joyful way. This is just amazing. This is just the most beautiful thing devotees can do in any religion. She said, in any religion, people should express their love to God in this way. And she wants to participate in Harinam one day, she told me. So yeah.
It just what you just said reminded me of a story. About 10 years ago, I was in Turkey with a friend of mine, and he is not a devotee, just an old friend from school, and we just kept in touch. But he was always very liberal, and we're still friends now. And I went to see him in Turkey. He was working there teaching English to students, and he'd got a new girlfriend, and his girlfriend was a Muslim woman, but quite liberal. You know, she didn't wear a hijab, and she was dating my friend, so she must have been quite liberal. And we were just chatting about, you know, religion and stuff. And I had my iPad, and I showed them a video of I think it was a Harinam or a Rath Yatra or something like that. People were dancing and chanting, and I could see her. She was watching the film, fascinated, and she said something. No joke. She said something like, "Well, that can't be religion because they're having too much fun."
They're having too much fun, no?
Yeah. That she thought they were like joking around and being silly. And you know, and actually religion is a very serious thing, you know, and we should be quiet and take it seriously, but that I can't be religious because they're having too much fun. And
That's funny.
I always remember that.
That's super funny. Well, I'm proud to pertain um to associate with devotees who don't think this way, who think that the most beautiful way is precisely to chant and to have fun.
Yeah, great. Well, we've had a lot of fun chatting for the last hour already, believe it or not.
I had a lot of fun, and I'm very grateful.
It's been really good to catch up with you and find out where you are on your spiritual journey. And I feel hugely honored, actually, to be speaking to you on the day that you were initiated.
Oh yeah, that was very funny. I don't know why I didn't tell you just by message or something today. I didn't happen. It didn't come to my mind. I don't know why. I thought.
Don't worry about it.
but it's very funny, yeah, that it happens today. Yeah, that I had. I mean, if we had this interview before I got initiated, maybe I would have said more it would have been different. Maybe I would have been,
I remember the day of my
different.
initiation as well, and just that positive high I was on for a
That's
few.
the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a really
yeah,
nice feeling, isn't it?
yeah.
And you certainly, for me,
Exactly.
I felt very connected to the Sampradaya, to the
Mm,
parampara. You know, that connection with previous acharyas. I felt that very strongly. You know, you're part of the family now.
exactly, exactly.
So
It
it's
feels
wonderful.
really good. Mm,
Yeah. So I'm going to just say goodbye to the people watching at home, and you and I can have a brief chat after. But Maya, it's been fantastic to have you as guest number 55 on the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast.
thank you
Um,
so much.
Thank you for your time. And to everyone watching at home, listening, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, do feel free to put a positive comment. You can like, love, or care for it. And please do share the link with your friends and family. And if you do want to be a guest on a future edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast, message the Hare Krishna Project and we will sort out a day and a time that's convenient to you to do the recording.
Amazing.
So
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you
everyone,
again.
and Hare Krishna. Take
Hare
care.
Krishna,
Bye.
everyone.